This episode is brought to you by Deal. Managing a global team is complex. Deal makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance, all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deal to hire, pay, and manage teams worldwide. See how Deal works at deal.com/agentan to learn more. That's DEEL.com/ADRIANTAN. Deal, your forever people platform.
Fear of public speaking is the number one fear that most people scared of, right? And I think by also keep building my discomfort zone, I try to lean into like, okay, I know that this is discomfort, but I know that this is going to also help me to improve myself. If you haven't given your all, there is no way of even, like quit, right? So I decided to give it a try again.
Hello, Ratna. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure a lot of people would already know who you are, what you do, but just for the small minority who may not be familiar with who Ratna is, how do you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ratna. So I am the founder of the Mindgem. We are a mission-driven learning and development organizations where we aim to empower people and organizations to basically shine at work and in life. So we basically run different kind of programs from well-being to leadership, team development, as well as personal branding. Yeah.
And this is something that you did, I think probably over the past 2 years, if I'm not wrong. You started, actually, according to your LinkedIn, you started 2021 August. And of course, prior to that,
Yeah. So I quit my full-time job in 2021. I took a career break because I actually went through quite a bit of burnout, and not a bit, a burnout.
we definitely must talk about that.
Yes, and after that, I think in about end of, so in between of the career break, I did I rest, and after that, I also did a couple of like side projects, and I literally run my own training business is about 2.5 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go straight to the burnout bit.
Sure.
Because I'm sure the audience will begin to understand what was that about? What was the trigger moment, and where were you in that point in life?
Okay, so I was working in the university. So it was there are a few factors that also caused burnout, right? Basically, it was during COVID, right? So everyone was locked down, and then I was also like in a way like felt quite stuck as well. And apart from the work that I am doing, and there were additional workloads that are causing me a lot more stress. And because of that, I started to develop, like a physical sensation or like health problems. I went to see doctors like very frequently. So it was like I don't know, I've never experienced something like that ever before. So it was like a lot of like I felt like my heart beats very fast. I fall sick very frequently. I had like a heartburn kind of experience. My eyes keep twitching and all that. So it was really very interesting experience, I would say, that I've never really experienced. And I think it was to the extent that it was really quite bad lah. So I just had to put a stop to whatever I was doing, and then like took a career break. Yeah. But it was really a lot of like things happening then lah. So I decided to just like, okay, like I had enough of this, and I'm just going to take a break. Yeah.
And the break, if I'm not wrong, led you to another role, which before you started your own thing. So I'd like to jump a bit and to understand what was your motivation in starting the Mindgem then?
Right. So maybe just to give a bit of context, for those of you who don't know me, right, I'm Indonesian. So when I first came to Singapore many years back, I could hardly speak English, right? I have a big dream to have a better life in Singapore, but with a very limited English, right? So it was really challenging for me to even, adjust or even communicate and express myself in English, right? And back then, even before moving to Singapore, I would just bring you back like before it was back when I was in Indonesia. I live in a very small town in like in the outskirts of Jakarta, and then when I was really young, I actually had this like a fear of public speaking. I When I was in primary school, I had to recite a poetry. It was part of my English oral exam test. And I studied very hard, but when it comes to the actual day, I just like blank out, totally blank out. And I couldn't even remember a single word. And that particular incident was so painful to the extent that it developed a trauma in me, right? So whenever I had to do public speaking in front of people and all that, that incident relieved again and again. And it just crashed my self-confidence, right? So it was hard to even, like grow up with that kind of like experience back then. And I remember back then, during my high school days, right after I graduated from my primary school, high school days, I attended a inspiring training programs. I couldn't even remember what training program was there, but that session left me feeling inspired about like hopeful about what's ahead. So I told myself I want to be like her one day, right? So become a teacher and trainer. But pursuing their dreams takes a lot of courage because of my fear of public speaking when I was in primary school, right? And but I think I planted that seed early in my kind of like early days, and that dreams brought me into when I first came to Singapore and I graduated. Despite of the limited English and all that, I actually went into my very first job. I went into a training firm, and I was being intentional in choosing my career path, right? I told myself if I cannot be a trainer or teacher, then I might as well learning how to run a training business in a way like marketing and operations. So I was intentionally choosing my career path. So I joined a marketing. My very first job was like doing a marketing job in a training company. And that's how I got started in basically learning the back end, the marketing and operations of the training company, right? And then after that, then I moved on into a bigger role in a training and consulting firm. I think that's also where we actually met during our early careers part. I bumped into you in one of your recruitment firm, right? Yeah, and then after that, I went on into the corporate training space, and I think at back then, right, I was basically working with my principal consultant who is like the main trainers. And I think in that particular in many of the trainings that I've supported him back then, right, I always have this feeling of like, oh wow, this is a very nice experience of being able to really bring everyone's together in a transformative experience. And I think because of that also it ignited my passion about becoming a trainer and educator, because like, hey, we can make so much positive impact in other people's life. And I think because of that also, that's how it strengthened my desire or my passion to be able to, like, maybe one day I can do something like that, right? Yeah, so that's how it got started. And I think because of the burnout, it also gave me a lot of space to really think through about like, hey, what I really wanted to do for my life, right? And that's how the intention of like, pursuing my own dreams, right, to become a teacher, an educator came about, that I really wanted to make a positive impact in other people's life. And that's how I started the Mindgem. I wanted to basically help more people as well to be able to really overcome the limiting beliefs they have, the barriers they have as well. And I think the reason why I, in fact, started Mindgem is also because when I was really in the process of healing, right, from my younger days to also coming to Singapore and experience like a lot of struggles from my limited English to facing retrenchment, workplace bully, and all that. I actually find so much strengths in this practice called mindfulness. And I think mindfulness has literally changed my life in a way that I could never imagine. And because of that, I mean, from someone who is so afraid of speaking to now getting paid to speak, it was such a big breakthrough in my life. And I think because of that, I also, wanted to help more people to experience how this transformative power of mindfulness, right? To be able to help them make a positive change in their life. And I think that's basically the initial intention of why I started Mindgem in the beginning, because I wanted to help more people to experience this power of mindfulness to be able to really change their life for the better.
Childhood drama is so real. For the longest time, actually, I never really believed it because I thought I didn't have it. Until there was one day I was writing something. It was meant to be a book for my kids. I am still writing it after like, I don't know, 15 over years. But there was one part where I was recounting what happened during my secondary school years. And I was tearing up. And I was in a public place. It was so embarrassing. And the more I continue to write, the more I tear up. And that really taught me that, childhood trauma is really a real thing, and it's important to work through that. And for your case, your dream is so powerful that you decided to face your childhood trauma head on. Could you help us to understand also? I'm curious to learn the initial bit when you try to, stand on a stage or to speak for the very first time. There must be quite uncomfortable, right? As you try to confront what has manifested years ago.
Oh, yeah, very much so. It was so terrifying, I would say. I remember that every time it was a very interesting discovery I have, as well as in the journey of healing my public speaking trauma, because like a lot of times I was so afraid of even speaking in front of people. But there was this part of me, I think it's also because of the dreams I planted, or the seeds that I've planted many years back, right? That whenever I'm so afraid of speaking, I don't know why, but my hand will raise up and say that I will volunteer to maybe host events or whatever it is. It was like, hey, what are you doing, Ratna? Your mind and your heart weren't in sync. My hand will raise up and it's like, hey, don't do that. So it was a very interesting conflict I see in myself then, that I was like, okay, what's happening here? But anyway, I just do it anyway, right? Despite of the fears that I have and all that, even with all the stutter and the heart beats million times per second, my hand will get sweaty a lot and my knees tremble. And it was like, wow, it was the most uncomfortable experience ever, right? But I just do it anyway, right? And I think because of that, it really helps me to also build that confidence, knowing that, hey, I know that all of these experiences are so real, but I think it's also people also experience this right? Fear of public speaking is the number one fear that most people scared of, right? And I think by also keep building my discomfort zone, I try to lean into okay, I know that this is discomfort, but I know that this is going to also help me to improve myself. Yeah, and that helps a lot. Yeah.
That's such an amazing story. I was just thinking back of the time when I also had to lean into do something that is really quite uncomfortable. Like recently, I had a surgery and trying to get back to exercising is really tough. Every time I exercise unintentionally, like trying to run after a bus, I will regret once I'm on the bus because one side of my body would numb up. I'll get this tingling sensation. It's part of the recovery process. It's unfortunate, but I also understand sometimes the pain has to come first before the
Yeah.
improvement can really kick in. And
Yeah.
I think that is what we are talking about here as well. Sometimes you just have to face the demon before you can go after the greater good that you're aiming for.
Yeah, exactly. It grows comes with some kind of discomfort in a way, right?
Exactly. And I also then want to understand about jumping into starting your own thing. Did that happen after your last job as a project director? Did that come naturally to you to start your own business? Was it one of the key consideration?
No, for sure no. So actually, the project director in a startup competition that was my side projects that I did on like a side hustle basis while I was also working full time then, and that was actually the transition, or maybe the role I needed to have to also help me to cover some bills as I was, doing the transition and doing my career breaks as well, and figuring out what I wanted to do next, right? And of course, starting my own thing has never really not really ever come across my mind, honestly. Like, I mean, my dad also run his own business, but seeing him struggling in his business, I was like, do I even want to run something like that? Yeah, it's something that I've really never thought of even doing in the first place. Like, I mean, like running my own business, right? I thought maybe doing like some kind of like teaching job or training kind of job, or like freelancing kind of thing. And yeah, so that was definitely super uncomfortable, right? And I realized that I've got to do A to Z on my own, from business development to marketing to sales to whatever, training delivery, curriculum development, whatever, invoicing, and whatever it is, A to Z, right? And it was like, okay, this is like challenging, right? And I mean, talking about sales and business development, that's like the core foundation of every business, right? If
And
there is no sales, don't talk about training or even facilitation or even coaching, right? There is not even those kind of thing. Yeah. So that was really hard.
so with that said, so why didn't you just look into becoming a trainer, a full-time trainer for some other company, since that was the key thing that you were looking at, instead of starting your own training business, which also encompass all the other frills that you mentioned?
Yeah. Okay. So there's quite a bit of like backstory here, right? So during that period of like discovery and like career break, and I was also like there was like another business slash job opportunities that came along. I waited for that particular career opportunities for about 9 months, and it didn't happen, so it kind of like bit of like career scam. So I was like, I just and that was concurrently together with like wanted to try to run my own business and getting business for my training and all that. And it was hard, right? And I thought, okay, the 9 months waiting were like torturing me. And I don't even have the space to even, like thinking of like running my own business again. And honestly, at that point in time, I started going to LinkedIn, not to create content, but to actually find job. So that's how it was like I was already on the verge of like, like finding a job and just, take whatever that comes lah. But I think at that point in time as well, I decided to actually invest in like a personal development program, and that's where I get my breakthrough in a way. And I was like, okay, like okay, let's do it again, right? And then, but of course, in that conversation, also, I was like, I had a conversation with my coach then, right? It's like, okay, so how can I help you right now, right? So I told him that I wanted to kind of like, uh, ditch this solopreneur and, you know, start looking for a job lah. And then he was
Mm.
saying that like, oh, actually, whatever you're trying to do is whatever I've done for a really long time, right? Why don't we do this together? And I was like, uh, why? I was like, I want to give up already. Yeah, anyway, he was like, but it was that conversation was also like quite thought provoking for me, and it got me to think also like, hey, have you done all right to make this something that you will be proud of, right? And the answer is no lah. So I told myself, if you haven't given your all, there is no way of even, like quit, right? So I decided to give it a try again. So that's how it got started. And I'm like, okay, let's just do this again. Like I'm giving myself like 2 years. If this
Mm.
is not, I'm not going to make it, then I'm just going to go back to corporate. So I kind of like giving myself a timeline too.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that you manage coach slash mentor who advise you
Yeah.
otherwise. In one of my earlier episodes, my guest Su Yan, she did mention about when you try new things,
Mm.
if you just give up only after once, the first time may be circumstantial. It may
Yeah.
not be because of your lack of effort or anything attributed to yourself, but it's because things just doesn't align at that point in time. And on an earlier episode, another guest of mine, Ezekiel, mentioned for any things that I want to try that is new, I would try at least 3 times. Because
Mm.
if it still fail on the third time, the fourth time is not going to change.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think giving yourself that permission and the opportunity to try definitely has proven to work well for many people, and especially for yourself. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I do want to segue to something a bit more fundamental before we continue the train of thoughts. Of all the colors, why did you choose red to represent yourself?
Okay. I get this question like almost all the time. I think it was interesting because it was just like so unconscious for me as well. Like nowadays, right? Like as Facebook reminded me of like the past memories I have in the past, every time I had to do like a presentation or I need to do whatever it is, right? Like 10 years ago, I've already started wearing red. So it was like, oh wow, this is something that has been happening like really long time, and then lately, I just become a lot more conscious in using that as my brand color as well, because I personally feel whenever I wear red, right, or shades of red, I felt a lot more confident. And I think yeah, so whenever I do presentation, I will make sure that I will wear something that brings me confidence, or the kind of like feeling that I wanted to project during my engagement. Yeah.
I must say the red is really on brand. Every time I see red, I would think of Ratna. And of course, the bad thing is when I don't see you in red, something is going on.
Yeah. So
Basically,
that
laundry day
helps
hasn't
in
hit.
a way to create association. A lot of people always say like, hey, I see your red even before I see you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So presently, touching very much on your business, I understand you do quite a number of things. If I were to break them down, of course, most of them are training related. But you have the personal branding aspect, you have the legal serious play. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. I think there's a
Yes.
few others as well. How do you manage your day to day, given that there seems to be so many things on your plate? What is a typical day like for you?
Oh, typical day is very different every day. So it really depends on the activities that I have, right? Like, for example, like on training days, then I will do training lah, and usually prior to a training days, I will do a prep. like in terms of like doing some research, doing the slides for my presentation as well, doing the planning, how am I going to run the training sessions and all that. So that's usually the prior to training. And then the training days, I will do the training. And then after that, then there will be like a post follow up after the training sessions that I need to send to clients, like evaluation form and some of the learning resources that the participants can tap into. Apart from that, I will also have like sometimes coaching days. Also, like I will set aside 1 or 2 days in a week for people to actually book my time, especially for the coaching. So I will book the coaching slots like in one day, so it's a lot easier for me to also manage as well. And apart from that, I will the morning is always like a sacred time for me. So I will always do my non-negotiable practices like meditation or workout as well. And in the evening as well, I will try to do my nature walk or doing some learning as well. It's part of my own development and growth. Yeah. So that's usually my typical day, which is like quite different every day away.
But in some sense, I do hear a structure, because in the morning you have certain stuff you need to do, and then in the evening, I mean, if you have to go for evening nature walk, you have to get away from your computer. You're not going to bring your laptop with you to the nature. So I
Yes.
think there is some structure to it, which I guess in a way help you to prevent burnout, right? Because you mentioned earlier on, one of the issue in your previous job was burnout. And oftentimes when I look at solopreneurs, people start doing their own thing, burnout is actually also quite a major issue. As much as we are trying to escape from the corporate world, it will follow us. And
Yes.
when you are doing your own thing, I heard this saying, which I think is very on point. When you are a solopreneur, you are the combination of the world's worst manager and the world's laziest employee roll into one.
Wow, that's a good.
So personally, do you come across instance where, it might be so hard to say no, but when you don't say no, you are basically having more things on your plate, and then things start to slide off your plate, then you have to put in overtime and all that. How do you naturally deal with all those kind of stuff? Or do you take a reactive measure or more of a preventive one?
It's well, I do have not a solo. I do have like a virtual assistant that I delegate some of my work to. So I think that helps a lot. And I think it's also important to like what you mentioned, right? Put a structures into your day so that I don't get burnout. And I also for me, right, the non-negotiable practices are so super important. So no matter how busy I am, I will always make sure that I do that, because that is something that will help me to manage my energy, right? I mean, well, we've got to as a solopreneur ourselves, right? We are our business biggest assets. If we don't take care of ourselves, then who will, right? So the non-negotiable routine, like the activities that brings me energy, is really something that I will not neglect it. And I think because of that, it helps me to manage different areas of my life. When I have more energy, I will have a lot better way to manage my tasks, my output as well, my outcomes as well. And I think that has been the foundation of how I like maintain my sanity lah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So it's really
move over to what you do on
block out
personal
time for the
branding.
non-negotiable.
Oh, sorry. I think there was a lag in the transmission. Let me start again.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So I want to move over to what you're doing in the personal branding space, because personal branding compared to things like your Lego, Serious Play and all that, there is a bit of differentiation in terms of the context. How did that come about? I do, of course, notice you applied that a lot in yourself, what you chose to wear and all that. Was that something that was done intentionally to lead to a personal branding and then training around that, or was it something more of an organic thing that came along?
Yeah, it's something I've never thought of even doing it in the first place. So when I first started on this journey, so it was really out of survival instinct, right? I mean, as a solopreneur business owner, we need to get sales and clients for business, and I think that's how I first got started. I don't even thinking of like building a brand. I just want to have clients, right? And that's how it got started. And I think it was a very interesting journey, I would say, because when I first started on like that journey of like getting a clients and getting a list, and the first platform I turned to was LinkedIn, because that's where my audience are, right? Like the corporate clients and all that. So I started writing on LinkedIn, and it was a very interesting journey. I would say that it was really like a healing journey for me, because like back then, when even during my work days, right, um like my boss told me that, I mean, even though my work was like marketing and business development, my writing was never good enough for him, right? So it took me like literally like takes so much out of me to even write on LinkedIn. And it was like to also realize that people actually read my content, and people think like, hey, actually I can resonate so much with whatever you shared, right? And a lot of my content was also like, went viral and all that. And I think I was like, wow, okay, this is something that literally, LinkedIn has literally shaken my limiting beliefs about writing. And a lot of times in that journey of writing itself, right, it helps me to like what you mentioned about the childhood trauma, right? It was literally a healing process for me. As I write, sometimes I cried, and it was like, wow, this is a very interesting way of processing emotions, right? And I think that I realized that that process was something that literally helps me to connect with the audience that I'm serving. And that was the reason why, like the content went viral, and people can actually resonate a lot with a lot of my content as well. And I think that's how it got started, right? And I think it was very interesting that that journey literally opens up doors of opportunities that I could never thought possible. I started getting inquiries for my business, and it was interesting to the extent that like the inquiries that came to me was like, hey Ratna, can you teach me whatever you do here on LinkedIn? So it was like, huh? You want me to teach you this? So it was like, sure. I won't turn down business, right? And I think that's how it got started, right? It's like literally teaching people how to build their personal brand on LinkedIn. And it was and of course I need to be responsible to my clients, right? So I started building framework, template, and what I have done well, and created that so that my clients can actually follow through, right? And I think it was and when my clients also follow through and doing what I did, they also can see the results and the transformation and the growth as well. And I think that was like, oh wow, these things really works, right? And that's how I also started getting a lot more inquiries about helping more people to build their personal brand, basically. Yeah. So it's something that I've really never thought even in the beginning, but it was organically grow into that space because of whatever I've done on LinkedIn. Yeah.
So in a way, he was trying to find an outlet to process your childhood trauma, but it, in a way, manifested into building up your authenticity, I would say, for sure, and leading to people who want to mirror the success of what that authenticity actually bring to you. So you started your personal branding journey unintentionally a few years ago, and of course that has snowballed to where you are today. having all these accolades that add on to what you're doing correctly. But I think at the same time, things also change very fast on LinkedIn. When it first started, there was no ChatGPT. Right now, the trending thing as we are talking today is people trying to create a toy version of themselves. And that is going everywhere on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
How has you evolved as well to, I wouldn't say make to the right on the algorithm, but I guess to have that sense of modern relevance, because LinkedIn keep changing as a platform and you have all these different external tools that people are using left, right, center. Does it change how you approach, how you present yourself right now versus when you first started?
Right. I think that's a good question. I think when it comes to like content creations, right, apart from, some of the tools that we use, the chat GPT and all that, which I also see a lot of things that is also happening on LinkedIn as well. It's also important to also really bring our authentic self to it, right? Because like people, like, the energy that we bring into the platform is so much more powerful than any kind of like whatever tools that you are using. I always believe that. I mean, the tools like, the chat GPT and any other tools that can help to, cut down the process and shorten the time is actually good to help us in amplifying our voices. But at the end of the day, it's still coming back into the core behind our voices, right? It's really about amplifying the values that we have, the interests. I call it vibe, right? VIBE, values, interests, beliefs, and emotions. Yeah. So these are really the strong foundation of our personal brand, because without the values, the interests, the beliefs, and the emotions that we all strongly believe in, right? I think we will not be able to really come up with whatever chat GPT prompt out there and all that. And I think that's always still the foundation of how do you want to amplify your voice. If you are not very clear about that and bring about the core values, the vibe, right? The values, interests, belief, and emotions that we all have, we will not be able to amplify our voices. So I think it's still coming back to the foundation of really understanding ourselves and having that self-awareness to be able to share our voices. Yeah.
So from
What's
idea,
your thought on that?
I think tools are definitely helpful in helping you to shape an idea, because sometimes being a writer myself, I face a lot of writer's block. When I first got my contract to write my book, I was given 9 months. I sit on it for 3 months because, well, I'm a master procrastinator. And when I first decided to start writing, because the deadline is looming, I basically, for the next 3 to 4 days, I was just staring at a blank page. I do not even know where to start, how to start. And I think with tools like ChatGPT and all that, it is very good sparring partner. I could actually tell ChatGPT, okay, I need to write this book. I am having writer's block. What should I do? And then you come with suggestion and all that. And if you do have certain angles, I've heard from this particular writer that he never wrote a book by typing. He always do it by dictation. So by dictation. So basically he'll record what he said into an app, have it transcribed, and then he will do the editing. And I thought that was a very smart way to do so, because if we just talk for maybe 30 minutes non-stop, that is maybe about 10,000 words. And if you, in my book was only 60,000 words. So actually me had to do it 6 times and then that's it. I mean, ignoring the editing and all that lah. But I think the AI can definitely be helpful in that way. But what it cannot replace is context. It cannot imagine our childhood trauma. And it is our childhood trauma that actually adds flavor and also adds relatability to the story we are trying to bring across.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's really about how it is the is what you fit into the tools that really makes a difference, right? If you don't give the context like what you mentioned, then they will not be
Mm,
able to produce to what you wanted to have. But I think, like, the stories that you created, that you curated as well, based on your past experiences,
mm,
that adds values into the your book and whatever you produce as well.
mm. So, tools or no tools, what are you seeing as common mistakes that people tend to make when they embark on their own LinkedIn journey?
Mm. I think I see many people quit too soon before they see the results. Yeah, I've seen so many. Yeah. I think I always find it personal branding is a lifelong journey. It's not about,
Mm,
2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years. It's really a lifelong discovery and a journey too, right? In owning our voice, finding our voice, and expressing it to add values to the audience that we are serving, right? And that's the reason why I think it's very important to have a stronger why. Why do you even want to build your personal brand in the first place, right? If you don't have that stronger why, it's so easy to give up after, like,
mm,
you don't see the likes, you don't see the engagement, your algorithm kind of like didn't favor you, or you see like suddenly it drops in views, like, hey, I only have like 1,000 views, like, hey, what's happening here, right? So it's so easy to just get distracted by all this algorithm or even whatever analytics out there. But I think it's really about having that clear why and purpose about why you even show up in the first place, right? To be able to be of service to be people, to be able to also add values to people. And I think
mm,
when we shifted our focus from, like whatever outcomes that we wanted to create, but it's really about how can we add values to the people that we are serving, right? And I think coming back again to the why itself, that's something that will anchor people
mm,
along the way lah, as they
mm.
they grow their personal brand. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great start because without direction, everywhere could be the right path.
Yeah,
So you need
exactly.
to at least know where you are facing. Okay, I
Yeah,
should go north and then just head in that direction. It may
exactly.
not,
And
yeah, you might not need to identify the right road, the right street, but at least you know which is the right direction to head towards. I think that will be very useful and helpful.
And I remember that, like one quotes, if you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there, right? So it's where you start that will bring you somewhere that
Mm,
sometimes you will not expect it as well, right?
mm,
Yeah. So it's just like try to go with the flow and see how this road will also bring
mm.
you.
Mm. Earlier on, you mentioned about doing this as a 2-year experiment and see where that leads you. If it works well, you continue. If it doesn't, then maybe you look at what plan B might be. So,
Mm.
where are you right now on this 2-year journey? Have you already crossed the mark?
Yeah, yeah, cross the mark already.
So, it
Not
is
going
safe
back
for
to
us to.
corporate anytime.
So, it's very safe to assume that we'll be seeing more of you in your red color on social media and wherever, of course, you are planning to bring your things to. So, and with that, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I'm very certain my audience will be very interested and happy to learn about the journey that you've gone through, the things that actually put you in those circumstances and help you to become a better person, the kind of pains that one has to go through in order to reach the other side of the fence. I think all these are common struggles that we see in life. Not exactly very common on a social media platform where we constantly only see the highlight reels,
Yeah.
but the reality is every one of us go through those struggles. And I
Yeah.
think it's good to know that even someone like yourself who is highly successful now has to go through that as well before reaching out to the other side of the tunnel. Now, for listeners and viewers who are keen to learn more about yourself, what you do, where can they go to?
I think they can connect with me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Ratna Juita. And you can also check out my website, www.themindgem.co.
I'll add this into the show notes. Thank you so much, Ratna. Thanks for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much, Adrian. And I'll see you again.